Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today I'm going to be doing my 2021 NHL mock draft simulation, plus some pretty big mock trades as we try to predict what will happen at this year's 2021 NHL draft. Now, I did a mock draft simulation a few months back, and we have had a lot of change in the standings. So today, we're going to be predicting the top 20 picks in this year's NHL draft. We're going to be going through each and every single one, the teams that could potentially win the lottery, and the potential trades we could see as well in this year's first round. So, how do I see this 2021 NHL draft shaping out? What are my mock draft picks, and who will your favorite team end up drafting in the first round of this year's NHL draft? Watch till the end for all of my picks and all the draft content, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. 65% of the people that are watching these videos are not subscribed, so every bit helps on the road to 34K. And on top of that, we make long-form hockey content just like this one every other day. So if you haven't already, we'd love to have you in the Grab Gang officially. But we're going to be going for the top 20 picks of this year's draft. And we're going to first simulate the draft lottery to see which teams get inside the top 3. The last time we had some pretty funky results. And I went through Tankathon one time to get these results here today. And they're pretty wacky as well. But the first overall pick, the Anaheim Ducks, come out of nowhere and get the first overall pick, I think for the first time in franchise history, if I believe correctly. Editing Grab can probably put something on the screen there. Anyways, the Calgary Flames as well. They get the second overall pick, the first top 3 pick they have ever had in their franchise history, which is crazy to think about, but they get a number 2 and a big time accomplishment for that franchise, not in terms of the season, but in terms of the lottery luck. And at number 3, you have the Buffalo Sabres, who I guess lose the lottery, but still the top 3 pick are in the area to select a pretty fantastic player, and we'll go for the other teams as well when we get there. But starting with this month's 2021 NHL mock draft simulation, we're going to start out the first overall pick, start out the draft with the Anaheim Ducks at number 1. And I think the number 1 pick depends on the team for sure, but in most cases this year, I think Owen is going first overall, and I see that as being the case this time around too. The Anaheim Ducks will end up selecting Canadian defenseman for the first overall pick, Owen. I think it's a pretty good fit for both sides, honestly. Owen Power is a guy that I think on Anaheim especially will get quite a bit of opportunity, and he gets to learn from quality defensemen like Cam Fowler and Hampus Lindholm especially, which I think will be great for him. I think Anaheim's kind of in that middle of the road where they're not completely defensive, but they're not also completely inept offensively, at least I think in the future with guys like Zegras coming in. So I think Owen Power will get to strut his offensive skills while also working on the defensive consistency and turnovers that I think have kind of plagued him throughout his freshman season in the NCAA. I still think he'll be a good defenseman, though I still have him number 2 in my rankings, and I think he's a guy that going to Anaheim will have a lot of success there. But now going on to the second overall pick and the Calgary Flames. Next up, we have another team that could use another big-time player, and Calgary is obviously in this weird mode where they've been better as of recent, but they're probably going to miss the playoffs, and it's going to be a disappointing year for them. But for Calgary at number 2, that's a fantastic opportunity to get a big-time player, and I see them going for another defenseman and getting Canadian D-man Brandt Clarke. Now, I think it's between Brandt Clarke and Luke Hughes. I think they go for a defenseman inside the top 3, but I think Brandt Clarke makes a lot of sense for them as a traditional offensive defenseman. I think they'll have a little bit of a Canadian bias there, but I still think it's a solid pick. Not what I would have at number 2, but in terms of a number 1 D-man offensively, I think Brandt Clarke brings a lot of those qualities and could be a guy that Calgary kind of anchors on, kind of like Giordano has been for them in the past decade or so. And now going to the Buffalo Sabres and the 3rd overall pick, and I just want to send my condolences to anybody that has to go to Buffalo in this draft. It's already not the greatest draft in the world, and then you have to go to Buffalo. Sorry. And I'm going to say sorry to the Buffalo Sabres, who will select Luke Hughes. Well, actually, I'm going to say sorry to Luke Hughes on the Buffalo Sabres, because Luke Hughes is an incredible talent in terms of offensive skating and transitioning and offensive IQ. I think Luke Hughes is one of the best in this draft, but the skating and the speed he has defensively is amazing, and there is still some kinks to work out. I would say, especially in terms of turnovers and costly ones, there can be some bad ones with Luke Hughes. Sadly, had his season cut a little bit short due to injury, but in terms of raw potential and raw talent, I think Luke Hughes at number 3 is still a solid bet, and if he can rebound from that injury perfectly, I think you have a top 2 defenseman for the future. And then going on to the 4th overall pick, and next up in the Ottawa Senators, I think this is pretty much the best case scenario for Ottawa with that 4th overall pick, and I think they will absolutely run to the stage, or I guess the Zoom call, to select USA centerman Matthew Beniers. I think Matthew Beniers is just a perfect fit for the Ottawa Senators. They have some great centermen right now in Josh Doris and Shane Pinto coming up as well, but I think Matthew Beniers can be another quality centerman that really does everything correctly. He's not stupendous in any one category, but he's just great at almost everything, and there's really no holes or immediate ones to his game right now, which for any player his age is absolutely incredible. I don't know if Matthew Beniers will be an elite number 1 centerman, but I think he can become a competent 1C in the future and be a guy that Ottawa, with that core, I mean, let's be honest, a 3-centered core Team USA wise of Beniers, Norris, and Pinto, that's absolutely amazing and would set up the Ottawa Senators for years to come. But now moving on to the 5th overall pick and the Seattle Kraken expansion, and with their first pick ever in the entire franchise, I think they will select a 5th overall William Eklund. I think William Eklund makes a lot of sense for the Seattle Kraken. He could be a center if he does develop that way. He was that before the SHL this year, but he was absolutely incredible in the SHL, not just looking competent, but looking dominant against men play, and I thought he was great, especially in the first half. Kind of slowed down in the second half, but he dealt with some injuries and consistency issues there, so I'm willing to negate that. But the best of what we saw with William Eklund, he looked like maybe the best player in the draft, and when he was kind of low on his game, he still looked like a great player and a guy who could be a top winger in my opinion. But then going on to the 6th overall pick and the New Jersey Devils, this is one of the more, I would say, more sure picks I have in this draft lottery simulation. At the 6th overall pick, I see the New Jersey Devils selecting Simon Edvinsson. I think especially at this spot, 6th or maybe later, depending on how the New Jersey Devils fall, I think if they're available at that spot, I think they will go for Simon Edvinsson. I think he makes a lot of sense for them. I still think there's some issues defensively, but he's cleared that up a lot in the Allsvenskan so far this year. But in terms of the offensive potential, I think there's a lot there. His skating is absolutely insane for a guy his age, and I think when it comes to Edvinsson, there's still a lot maybe defensively that can be unlocked. He did show some spurts, especially when it comes to the defensive zone play, that I think can be worked, and it's really just the turnovers. It's really just the terrible, funky plays that he'll just make once in a while that absolutely aggravate you. He still, I think, can become a great player, but he's going to take some patience, and I think New Jersey will be a team that will give the patience to him, which I think will definitely be important for his development. But then going on to the 7th overall pick, we have another team, kind of like Ottawa with Beniers, who gets a player exactly where they want him. Going to the Detroit Red Wings at 7th overall, I think they will select Swedish goaltender Jesper Wallstedt. I think this is perfect for the Detroit Red Wings. They do have some goalie prospects in their system, but really nobody that comes close to the potential of Wallstedt. I thought, again, a guy like Askarov that they dropped a little bit last year would have been a good pick for them, but at number 4, Lucas Raymonds is the pick to go for. But at number 7 in this year's draft, Wallstedt is an amazing pick. Even though kind of like Eklund, he's been a little bit less or so in the second half, I still think even when he hasn't really been on his game this year, Wallstedt has still been a very, very good goaltender. Now going on to the 8th overall pick in the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think they'll go for a little bit of a different pick than what they're usually accustomed to and kind of go more like what they did last year and pick Kent Johnson with the 8th overall pick. Now he's not really a Columbus player, he's really not good at all defensively, but I don't think it's because he's bad, it's just he's not really putting in the work. But in terms of offensive play, transitional play, getting the puck on his stick, when he has the puck on his stick, he's one of the best players in this draft, and especially when it comes to power play, I think can rip teams apart at the next level. I think Columbus wants to become a little bit more of a skilled team. Maybe if they fire John Tortorella, I think this could make a lot of sense for them going forward. But then going on to the 9th overall pick and the Los Angeles Kings, they still have some amazing options to work with. Maybe not on defense, but in terms of forwards, I think that'll be what they go for again. I think LA is one of those teams that won't go for need necessarily, but will go for the best player available, which I think most cases should be the case, and I think LA will end up drafting Dylan Guenther. I think Dylan Guenther would be an amazing pick for them, especially at 9th overall. He's been insane in the WHL this year, which is not really too surprising. But Guenther is a guy that in terms of wing play and in terms of actual offense creativity, I think he's one of the most fun players to watch in this draft. And when you combine that speed, that skill, and that silky pass along with a really underrated shot, Guenther has a lot of tools to his game. I think LA will definitely develop him right. Then going on to the 10th overall pick and the Vancouver Canucks, I'm going to go with them with a little bit of a reach here and go with Carson Lambos. Now, I think if we're going to see any huge surprises, and especially a lot of them in this year's draft, in any draft, it's going to be this year's, just because there's so much uncertainty and a lot of guys just haven't really played that many games. And I think we could see teams take a big swing on a guy that hasn't even played at all this year. I think Carson Lambos is kind of in that boat for Vancouver. I thought he was solid in the WHL last year, but he's kind of suffering from a little bit of a Braden Schneider effect where I still think there's a lot of turnovers and defensive icings when he's in his own zone that can kind of lead him to some bad plays, get him forced too much. But I still think in terms of skating and in terms of actual mobility, there is a lot to work with there, and I think Vancouver will look at that and try to make him as a project in their system. Then going on to the 11th overall pick, I'm going to go now to the San Jose Sharks, and I'm going to have them selecting Stanislav Svozil. Now, I think they're going to go for two back-to-back defensemen here. Two guys that I think are a little bit of a reaches at their spot. I think for the Sharks, though, they will go for a defenseman here and go with Svozil. I think it's an interesting fit for San Jose. Svozil is one of the most agile, mobile defensemen in this draft. A great puck handler, great puck mover. Besides that, I'm not sure if there's too much to his game. He does suffer quite a bit from his size, and I feel like there's not enough physicality in his game, and defensively you can't get overmatched, but he's played a lot in the Czech League this year, which is still a very competent men's league, and you could kind of see that he was a junior player in a men's league. But I do think the Sharks could round him out into an NHL defenseman. And now going on to the Coyotes, just kidding. Now going on to the Blackhawks at number 13, I think they will end up selecting Swedish winger Fabian Lysell. I think Lysell could definitely go higher than this. This is one of those players that I'm really not sure what the value is there. For me, I see him as a top 10 prospect, especially when it comes to the overall game, which is very tenacious. A guy that I think is an amazing winger for the future, especially kind of like a more Blake Coleman, I would say, is what Lysell could bring to his game. I think at 13th overall, though, Chicago will be smart and pick him there. I think he's just a great overall grindy forward that really, in terms of skill and actual speed and actual quickness, does have a lot of that too. He really isn't that one-dimensional, and I think can bring a lot of different aspects to his game, which I think Chicago will definitely like going in the future. Then going on to the 14th overall pick, I'm going to go the Dallas Stars and then picking Cole Sillinger. Now, I know I'm wearing the Golden Eyes shirt, but the Dallas Stars are my favorite team, and I would love them getting Cole Sillinger in this spot. I right now have him in my top 10. He's been absolutely incredible in the USHL this year. Defensively, I don't think it's been incredible, but again, it's kind of like a Ken Johnson situation where it's not really too much of an effort. I think defensively, when he has tried, he's actually been pretty decent, but the offense is what you're drafting Cole Sillinger for. He's one of the most creative, one of the most fun players to watch in this draft. Then going on to the 15th overall pick, we have the first official mock trade to announce. The Philadelphia Flyers trade the 15th overall pick to the Edmonton Oilers in exchange for the 20th overall pick, a 2022 second rounder, and 7th round on top of that. So the Philadelphia Flyers and Edmonton Oilers exchange picks there. Now going to the Edmonton Oilers, they'll jump up and select USA forward Chaz Lucius. Chaz Lucius has become healthy once again this year and has been on an absolute tear to start up the season, really leaving where he left off from last year. Lucius, though, is a guy that I think does have potential to become the best goal scorer of this draft, and after getting Dylan Holloway in the last draft for Edmonton, they get another big time winger here who I think alongside McDavid and Draisaitl has the potential to be absolutely amazing on that team. And now going on to the 16th overall pick, in another situation like Beniers on Ottawa, another situation like Jesper Wallstedt on the Red Wings, at number 16, the New York Rangers get the perfect player for them at the perfect spot in the perfect situation for him as well. And we're going to go to the 16th overall pick, and the New York Rangers selecting Finnish centerman Aatu Räty. Now, Aatu Räty is a guy that, yes, this year has not been great in terms of the score sheets, but in terms of the overall play, especially in the second half, he's found a lot more confidence, a lot more opportunity, and has been doing very well with it. He's been one of the best play drivers just in general in the league this year from what I've noticed, and defensively he's been as good as advertised. I don't think Räty will be an amazing number one center, but I think he could become a second line center that is pretty reliable, and I think for the New York Rangers, they could definitely use a guy like that for the future. But now going on to the 17th overall pick, and the San Jose Sharks I think will make a little bit of a reach here, but a guy that I think will definitely go underrated if he goes to this spot. I see the San Jose Sharks looking at 17th overall, USA D-man and Texas-born D-man Brandt Johnson. Now, Brent Johnson has definitely been one of the more under-the-radar prospects in this draft, and really besides scouts, I don't see anybody talking about him. He has been incredible in the USHL this year, just like Luke Hughes. Unfortunately had his season cut short due to injury, but when he was playing this year, he was one of the most complete, agile, mobile defensive defensemen you could possibly find. And on the offensive side, too, I thought there was a lot to his game that could be unlocked there, and the point totals in the USHL were pretty great, too. Then going on to the 18th overall pick, though, in the Nashville Predators, I think they'll go for a defensive centerman if you're Svechkov. Now, I think for the Preds, I think definitely getting a number or at least a potential top 6 centerman is definitely in the cards. Now, Svechkov, I think will take a lot of patience coming from Russia, obviously, but I think just being more of a project, I think that comes with it, but I think Nashville will want to take that on. Svechkov, though, has the potential to be the best defensive forward in this draft, but in terms of translatable abilities offensively, I still think there's a decent bit there, and I think he could become as high as a second-line center in this league, which for Nashville, especially at 18th overall, is not a bad bet. Then going on to the 19th overall pick, though, and the Montreal Canadiens, I see them going for another defenseman and going for Daniil Chayka. Now, Daniil Chayka is an interesting one. I'm not the highest on him, but I can see where the value comes from. He's a great physical defensive defenseman who, in terms of blocking shots and getting in the way, does a lot of good there. I think he's kind of in the same repertoire as Kaiden Guhle a little bit, but I do think in terms of offensive play and driving play, he does have some good qualities to his game. Again, I'm not the highest on him, but I can see where they're coming from drafting him in the top 20. Then going on to the Philadelphia Flyers, though, at number 20, of course, with that Philadelphia and Edmonton trade, they exchanged from 15 to 20. I see the Philadelphia Flyers going for Carson Kuhlmans. Now, Carson Kuhlmans comes from the same AJHL franchise as Cale Makar, and obviously there's going to be comparisons made because of that. But I think Kuhlmans is a guy that does have some same qualities. Defensively, I'm not the highest on him, but he does have some pretty good size on him, both in terms of height and weight, and I do think that you could get him into a decent defensive level. But the offensive game, I think, is really what strikes with him. He's a great offensive skater, great transition player, especially when it comes in the offensive zone, power play wise. He's a great puck handler, great puck mover, and at 20th overall, the Philadelphia Flyers do use him right. I think he could become a good NHL player and a guy that Philadelphia could definitely have in the power play and feel pretty content with. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. If you haven't already, make sure you comment down below all your thoughts on my mock trade simulation. What do you agree and what do you disagree with? Do you like the trades here? Do you not like the trades here? And what about the picks as well? Let me know all your thoughts. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Get it out there, boys. And click on this card up here to watch all of my hockey prospects content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Have a fantastic day. Goodbye.